Alright, hey guys, it's been a minute since I've done one of these behind the discussions videos. I didn't do one for the sister location rewrite, and I thought it would just be fun slash kind of a little bit important to do a little bit of talking about the Silverized rewrite video and some of the issues slash problems that sort of came up while I was working on the video. So the first major issue was that for like a week I got sick, and so I didn't do much recording. I didn't really do a lot of anything because I would go to work, feel super terrible, and then come home and not want to do anything. So I lost about like a week's worth of work on the video itself, and so that's why I pushed it back by a week. And other things came up. I got interested in other topics, other ideas. For starters, I'm going to start writing my own book, and so I was working on a lot of that kind of stuff. And there was just a lot of demotivating factors that went into it. Like, I just didn't feel as motivated in this project as I did in some of my other ones. So it kind of just got cobbled together and thrown out as like a completed video, even though I really feel like it really wasn't all that complete as of a video. And nothing says a video is incomplete than having an incomplete script, because my script, despite being like just over 9 pages long, is incomplete. Like, the last half of the story I had, I didn't write down, so it was a little bit more on the fly. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to talk about, where the story was going to go. So all the general ideas and concepts were what I had in mind, but some of the actual smaller details and wording and events were a little bit more just kind of thrown together for the sake of releasing the video. And it's not exactly my proudest moment, and I don't know what went wrong with this, because I was super invested when I started it, and then I just sort of lost track and lost interest. I don't know what happened, so it's a little bit of a bummer there. But I do think for the future videos, the twisted ones in Fourth Closet, I do actually feel a little bit more invested, and I'm going to try to get a bit of a jump start on those. So I got the tabs open. I've already got some stuff made for it. I'm already working on it, so hopefully we don't run into the same issue of demotivation and all this kind of stuff. And I think the other big factor to why I had a hard time making this one was that there wasn't as many blatant things I wanted changed in the book. Like, for example, the twisted ones in the Fourth Closet, there's a lot of stuff in there that's like, it's gotta go, or like the writing in here is just terrible, so it's gonna change. Like, there's a lot of things that are gonna be different for those, but I generally like the Silverized for the most part, so there really wasn't as many things that I was gonna be like, all right, it's gotta radically change. So coming up with things to change was a little bit more difficult for this one. I still think the general ideas and concepts turned out really nice, just I maybe didn't do a good job pushing those forward. And that's sort of what else I wanted to talk about with this, is what are some of these ideas, because a few people left some comments being like, hey, you made this change, why did you make this change? And I didn't do a good job explaining things in the video. For the most part, it was supposed to be like not an audio book, but like me kind of just going through the story without fully explaining everything. That was kind of the point of the video, and I realized that maybe it wasn't the best thing to do. So for future videos, I'm going to put a little bit of like we're going to bring back the summary section from previous discussion videos. We're going to bring it back and summarize some of the major changes after the story's done. That way people maybe will, I can explain things better to people and they can understand it a bit more. So just some of the major story things and changes here that I saw people bring up in question. One major change I made was having John stay in Hurricane in the actual Silverized. Carlton is the one that he stays there, and he stays there with his family, and John is the one who moves out somewhere else, and then he comes back, and it's, the whole whatever. But I wanted John to stay in Hurricane, that way when we get to the twisted ones and it's a more smaller scale story where our main characters are John, Charlie, and Jessica, and we don't have the whole band back together, it's more explainable to have John there than having it be like, oh, well, he just showed up out of town and Carlton's not really involved in the story, because Carlton doesn't really show up in the Twisted Ones, but John's there a lot, but John has to drive in from out of town. So it just seemed a little bit weird to have him there if he's not gonna actually like permanently stay there. And then by the fourth closet, he's living in Hurricane, so he's gonna stay there anyway. So I just made it happen here. And there may or may not be some major story reasons that I'm not going to reveal yet as to why I wanted John to stay here, and especially to the fact that he has an apartment in Hurricane that Charlie has seen before. That's all I'll say. I have some story things. I'm not going to share them here. That's going to be for the fourth closet. But there's story reasons to it that I think I just didn't do a good job explaining. And having Carlton gone, I explained away by having his family already split, because by the Twisted Ones and especially the fourth closet, Carlton's parents are no longer together, and I just did that beforehand and I didn't explain why. So in the actual novel trilogy, Chief Burke was like super invested in the Freddy's case, and that kind of, you know, drove him a bit crazy and kind of made him drive away some of his family. I just had that happen before the events of the book, so that it's already happened and we don't have to like just randomly shovel that in between books. So that was another story thing. And I think one of the biggest changes that I did was having Jason being kidnapped by Afton and then going through the whole Springlock suit, and not having Carlton do that. And I made the difference because on the one hand, Carlton does have a connection to Michael. I wanted to take a little bit of inspiration from the FNAF movie and having a kid connect to the missing children. So instead of it having be like, oh, well, Carlton is connected to the missing children, and then nothing happens with that until like the end of the fourth closet, Jason is going to have an actual reason to be here. And the big thing I wanted to do was have everybody come back in the fourth closet, because some characters like Lamar just disappear off the face of the planet in the next two books, and Jason does the same thing. Like in the Twisted Ones in the fourth closet, they just don't show up. They're like mentioned offhand once and they never show up. And I wanted to bring them all back because, especially in the fourth closet, it's the big grand finale of the story. Everybody should be there. So I wanted to give a reason to have Jason come back and have more important story elements in that book specifically. So he has a connection to the missing children that I didn't explain very well in the rewrite. My plan was to kind of delve into that a little bit more, and I didn't too much in the video, but I did have him meet Michael, and Michael's kind of like, hey, you're a fellow kid, it's good to see ya, you know, like, hey, it's good to meet another kid. And so they connect because they're both kids, and I imagine, like I kind of said, it's sort of a movie ish scenario where it's like the kids are possessing the suits and the kids see Abby and they're like, oh, you know, it's another kid, we get to hang out with another kid, this is super fun. That's sort of the idea I'm going for. And then by the fourth closet, Jason's like a couple years older, so then he's a little bit more mature, he knows what to do with everything, and he's not going to be like some stupid kid. And so then when all the stuff goes down and he runs into the missing children again, he's going to actually have a connection that will be helpful to the story. And obviously, we're not out of the fourth closet yet, so I'm not going to explain all that. But the idea is to have him have more of an important role in what's going on. So that was the sort of change for that. And really outside of that, most changes were just big pacing ones. I kind of drew things out. The biggest change that I don't know if people picked up on, I briefly hinted at it, but they do actually spend 5 nights in the mall, which, well, 5 times in the mall, because 4 of them are nights and then 1 time they go during the day. But in the original book, they go 4 times, and I was like, you're 1 off from being 5 nights at Freddy's. So I just added in another visit, which kind of drew the book out a little bit longer, but I figured it was fine, because then you actually include they go there 5 times, and I just thought then it worked out a little bit better there. But as a whole, it was mostly pacing issues. It was mostly weird, like getting rid of the weird subplots, like going out to Fredbear's for some reason. They don't need to go there. They have the photo album, they find Fredbear's, and then they kind of put some pieces together like Edwin Murray, and it was more just sort of that kind of thing. And obviously, you know, the biggest change, there's no 6-year-olds trying to make out at all, because that was just so weird. And I think I maybe overdid it a little bit in the video, like bringing it up and talking about how stupid that was. I think I overdid it just a little bit, but I think it's really weird, so that's kind of why I did that. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Just more of a clarification video, and just sort of talking about like behind the scenes kind of stuff, and less about like I don't know. That's sort of what these behind the discussions are supposed to be anyway. So just thought I'd share some of the behind the scenes things with you guys. So explaining away some story things, and then also talking about kind of what went wrong, if you will, with the video. So I hope you guys, you know, took something away from this, understood the rewrite at least a little bit better. And if you still have any questions, I'll, you know, be happy to answer them in the comments. And yeah, anyway, with that, that's gonna be it. Hopefully this wasn't too long. I'm not looking at how long this video is, so I don't know how long it's gonna be. Hopefully not too bad. And I'm really looking forward to the Twisted Ones rewrite. I think it's gonna be really good. I have a pretty solid concept here. I know what I'm gonna do, and I know what I'm gonna change, which is a little bit more than what happened before the Silver Eyes rewrite. So this one should be infinitely better, and hopefully, you know, you guys will also see that when the video comes out. So anyway, again, that's gonna be it. Hope you guys at least maybe not enjoyed, but you know, found the video interesting, and I will see you guys in a few days with the gaming video. So see you then. Goodbye.